Once upon a time, a long time ago, in a faraway land, there lived a king and a queen who had everything they wanted, except children. They waited, and at last they had a son. He was a beautiful baby, so beautiful that they called him the handsome prince. Now the king and queen had no other children after that, and their son was so charming that they gave in to his every whim. And so he grew from a beautiful baby to a spoiled little boy, to an arrogant and self-indulgent young man who was always demanding his own way and nearly always getting it. He was still called the handsome prince, but it was only out of habit because he was so very lazy and self-indulgent, and it showed in every line of his face and figure. And so we have the handsome prince on the day when our story begins. It began like any other day in the prince's life. He woke up, opened one eye, and instantly his servants rushed to bring him his breakfast, which they carried in on a tray carved of solid jade. They set the tray down by the prince's bedside, and he ate a bountiful breakfast in bed, as he always did. And the instant he had finished the last crumb, the servants whisked away the tray and brought him his shirt, which was made of the finest green silk, because green was the royal color of that kingdom. And then they brought him his pants, which were of exactly the same shade of green. The prince allowed his servants to dress him. He never dressed himself. He hardly knew how to button a button. And when they had finished, he went downstairs to sit at a table all day, playing checkers with his courtiers. This was his favorite pastime, because they always let him win. But this day was not to be like any other day in the prince's life, because on this day a soft spring breeze stole through the castle and lured the prince outside, out the gate, down the road, past the lazily turning windmills, and down to the river. It was the first time the prince had been so far from the castle unattended. When he got to the river, he found the royal sailboat. Now, he didn't know how to sail it, but he thought that it too would obey his every whim, so he climbed in the boat, untied the rope, and started drifting down the river. At first, the prince saw many people on the banks with their houses and their barns. And on the river itself, there were people in boats of every kind. But at last, he came to a place where his was the only boat on the river. There was no one on the river banks, and it was getting dark, and he was getting hungry. He tried to turn the boat around to make it go home, but he didn't know how. It was all he could do to get the boat to the riverbank and get it tied up. And then he looked around, and he saw that there were no servants there to bring him his supper. And he realized that he would have to find someone who would. So he searched all through the boat until he found a lantern and managed to get it lit, and started out across the darkening countryside to see what he could find. At first, he saw nothing but grass and sheep, but at last, the rays of his lantern fell on a young woman lying asleep under a tree. "A beautiful princess," said the prince, for since she was beautiful, he assumed she must be a princess, though she was dressed like any shepherdess. "I will awaken her," he said, "with a kiss." But at that sound, the young woman woke up. "You're not supposed to wake up until I kiss you," said the prince. "Whatever are you talking about? I wake up whenever I hear a noise because I'm guarding my sheep." "Well," said the prince, "I'm going to kiss you anyway because you're a beautiful girl and I am a handsome prince." "But I don't want to kiss you," said the shepherdess. "And as for handsome, with that shiny green suit and that soft white skin, you look just like a frog." "A frog? Nonsense," said the prince. and he kissed her anyway. Well, the moment he kissed her, he turned into a soft, green frog. So, if anyone ever tells you a story about a frog who was really a prince under an enchantment, now you know how he got that way.